Okay, so we're going to start to do the setup on the car, and this is a setup that I'm doing on a brand new car this time. So the first thing that I need to do, the things that I'm going to be using for the setup is I've got like the hoodie setup gauges. I've got a set of rims for the tyre manufacturer that will be racing, because these have different offsets in them, which is basically the distance from where they locate on the hub to the end point of the wheel. So it's important that you're setting the car up to the manufacturer's rims that you're using, and if you change them at events, so say if you go to like from dry tyres to damp tyres, you have to be aware of this, because if they're a different manufacturer, you could complete the final and then find out that your width on the rear of the car is much too long and then get disqualified. So yeah, really important to remember the offset on the wheels. Droop gauges, which this is used for, and then the ride height gauge. I've got a 30 centimetre long vernier, and then just like the normal size vernier that everybody has. I think it's like 160 millimeters, 16 centimeters, and just your normal drivers. Then the other things that I've got here are stuff that I've seen in everybody's kits or tool sets that have done racing for a while, which is just basically some old tools that have been manipulated into shapes that are helpful for when you're doing like these changes here on these angles, just to be able to get into places. So I've bent this one on the end here, and then this one's just like filed to a point on the end here. They're just helpful. Right, so the first thing that we're going to do is just make sure that everything on the car is even. The other thing that I'm doing whilst I'm setting up these distances is I'll be setting all these ball joints to a neutral position like that, so that the flat on my driver is pointing straight up, so that flat's kind of like in line with the top of the car, and all my ball joints will be like that. Right, so I've got all those gaps equal on the car. It's just an arbitrary value. It's not set to anything. I will set the gaps precisely now by attaching the wheels and using this long vernier. The other thing that I should have said as well at the start of this video is the very first thing that you need to check on the car before you do any of this is the weight and the balance of the car. So I've checked this car to make sure that it reads the required 2.4 kilograms that the car needs to be. So you need to check that, because obviously as you add weight to the car, it's going to affect like the angles that you're going to have on here and stuff like that, and depending where you put the weight on the car. But I've checked the car and it's not needed any weight adding to it, so it's just as is from out the kit, with wheels with a little bit more rubber than this on it. I think I've found from a new set of tyres to a used set of tyres, I think it makes a difference of about 50 grams from what I recall. So that's what so if you put like a brand new set of tyres on it and it was reading 2,410, you thought, oh yeah, that's okay, I'm over. You're not over really, you're under, because you need to measure it at the weight of a used set of tyres to make sure it's going to be legal at the end of a 30-minute run. There is the aspect that you'll collect like the rubber on the inside of your shell, but still, it's better to be safe than sorry. Right, so now we're going to set up these track ropes. So just going to measure the width here at the front from underneath there. And what I'm aiming for is a width of 252. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to say, 252. So at the moment it's quite far off. The thing that you do need to be conscious about though is because I'm elongating the length here so much that the toe out is becoming really dramatic, which will affect the distance that you're measuring here. So 252. That's what I was aiming for. That's what I've got. By changing those angles there, changed it by about ½ mil. But that's just a visual thing at the moment. I just wanted them a bit more in line because I know it will affect it. We'll set them up in a bit. Right, so on the back, I want 264. So I've got a mile off there. So we've got 258 at the back at the moment, and that's just measuring it on the centre point. So I'm actually going to set these to 263. That's what I'm going to aim for on the centre point, because then on the back point here it should be 264. Right, so that reads 263.4, which I'm going to leave it at because I don't know the angle that I've got here at the moment, and that will affect that reading. So I'm just going to leave that as it is at the moment and then sort it out. It's close enough, it's in the ballpark. So we've done that. The next thing to do is the droop. So as I said, when I'm doing my droop, I do it with the suspension connected because I don't want the suspension to restrict it. So I'm just going to measure that. So that's measuring 0 on that side. Two on that side. So what I'm doing there when I'm looking down is I can see that my screw heads here are about equal. This one might be slightly lower this side, so I shall undo it by 1/6 of the turn. But if I look down, I've got the bumper, and then I've got the points that the grub screws are sitting on, and I can tell whether one of them's lower or higher than the level bit of the bumper. And I can see that on this side it's lower. So again, I'm just going to turn it by another 1/6 of the turn. I'm doing it. So they look a lot more level to me now. Right, so they're both at 0, but that's not where I want them to be. I want them to be at -1. And again, with these screws, as I'm doing it, the flat of the screwdriver head is facing me here, and it's even on both sides. So even if the droop was a little bit out, so maybe when I was pushing this one under, this one's clipping the -1 as it goes through, and say this one was just going straight onto the -1, but still no real difference there. I'd rather have that, because then when I'm down at the track, and if I want to try and reduce the droop that's on the front end, I can just put my screwdriver in, see that the flat's in front of me, and say turn it half a turn. And if I turn it half a turn, I know that that's going to take it probably to +1 really, or to 0. So then I can do that as an instant change down by the track, and my driver can say, yeah, it's either better or it's worse. So that's the droop at the front set. So we're just measuring the back one at the pivot ball point. So this is 8. And this one's 7. Right, so there's an issue on this car because I can see that the grub screws are not in contact with the chassis. So I'm guessing it's got something to do with the shockers. Yeah, so I've taken those shockers off here, and now the grub screw is sitting on the chassis. Right, so they're both at 7 now. Again, with these grub screws here, they're facing my body again, so that they're flat. But because I wasn't able to achieve that with the shockers attached, it now means that I've got to take the shockers off and adjust the length of them. So they were reading 13.5 and I'm changing them to 14. What I've found in the past is that when you're changing that distance there, you don't have to change it much for it to have quite a dramatic effect on there. Don't know why, but that just seems to be the case. So I've changed that to 14, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to attach one back on this side and just see what that looks like. I know that that's fine. I can see that the grub screw is touching the chassis. Yeah, so that is all perfect as far as I'm concerned. The grub screws look about the same depth either side. Underneath, they're both touching the chassis. I know that they're both reading 7, which is the lowest I ever want to go on the back of an 8th car. I never go lower than 7 on the droop. So there we go. They're both reading 7. And then again, track side, we'll adjust them. So just checking that rear anti-roll bar. If I lift this side, that's when that side engages by that much. And then if I move this side, it's moving by the same amount, and then this side is engaging. They're both just set at dead center, like dead at where they originally would start. So if I wanted to adjust them so that they were a bit more equal, so say this one was not reacting as quick as this one here, I'd just elongate the length of this one. So I'll just undo this one by full turn. That's it. So attach the shockers back to this side. Probably about 1/2 centimetre, whereas this one's moving probably closer to 1 centimetre before it's getting the reaction. That's it. So just by feel, I can just feel that this one's moving like 1/2 centimetre, this one's moving 1/2 centimetre to get the same reaction either side. So to me that anti-roll bar is balanced now. I can see it a little bit here as well on the plastics that you use for the droop. You can just see that they're moving about the same either side. So to me that's done. some old wheels that I used to have in my toolbox that I used to set the ride height, but now I set the ride height on the gauges. And the reason why I've just put those tyres on the front and not the gauges on the front is just whilst I'm fiddling about here on the rear, it's just easier having them on the front because these, right, I don't know, just a real pain. So I've got my clips, my retaining clips for the wheels here, equal either side, so that they're kind of pointing in these directions because they're offset. So one's pointing forward, one's pointing back at me. So the first thing I'm going to do is just check the ride height. So it's reading 12 at the back. I just want to check the length of these collars. They're both the same. So that's perfect. So I don't know how that. Yeah, so the ride height at the back here on the gauges is 12 on the hoodie tool, 12 mil. So now we've got to do the camber, and I can see on the back here the camber is way out. So we've got to adjust these. So this is where I use like my weirdly shaped tool, and we need to make these longer because there's too much camber on here at the moment. So now we've got 2 degrees on this side, we've got 2 degrees on that side. Let's just measure it to make sure that that's equal either side. 34.5. Just check the ride height again. It's gone up a little bit, it says 12.5. So I'm going to leave that as it is, so that's perfect. So 2 degrees, 2 degrees, fine by me. So when you're using these gauges here to measure your toe, there's a correct way and a wrong way to be able to do it. So this is the wrong way, so you can see how hoodie's spelled backwards there. You want to put it down so that hoodie's spelled the correct way to you. So it says hoodie correctly to me there. I can see that on here we've got 2 degrees, and on here we've got 2 degrees, which I'm not surprised about because I measured them, so they should be equal. So we've got 2 degrees on the back there, so that's that. So then just going to do the front so they can go away. Again, I've got those retainer clips in the same position either side. Just going to measure my shocks. Right, so I've put 8mm either side on these shockers from the collar, from the cap to the collar, and I've got a ride height there of 10mm. So we had 12 on the back, 10 on the front, so we've got a 2mm difference, so there's a rake on the car. So yeah, so we've got these collars here where we need them, done the ride height, so now we're just going to check the camber. So on this one we've got 2 degrees, this one we've got just under 2 degrees. I just noticed that there was quite a bit of play on those top ball joints there, so that's why I was adjusting them. Right, so we've got 2 degrees that side, 2 degrees this side. Everything looks fine to me. We checked the length. Just need to check the toe out now. Again, make sure hoodie's facing you on the top. I'll just make sure that that steering point is in the middle. And apply pressure at the back here. Slide this across. So that says 1.5. That says 1.5 as well. So I want to take just a little bit off that. screw this in. Oh no, don't want to tighten it up. One and one. Right. The only thing left to do on the car now is the tweak, and that's why I put the tyres back on. So this wheel might be ever so slightly touching before this one, but it's so minute that I'm reluctant to touch it, so I'm just going to say that that's okay. Particularly with it not being ran yet, I shall give it more of a shakedown, more of a check after it's had its first shakedown. Again, exactly the same on the rear. This one might be touching ever so slightly before this one, but there's nothing in it. No, I'm not going to touch any of that. For me, that's straight. I know all the measurements are straight, so I think I'm happy to think that the car is straight at that. But again, if I was unhappy with it and I felt that it did need adjusting, if this wheel touched before this wheel here, I would increase the pressure. I would screw this nut down so that it increases the tension on the spring, and I'd screw this nut up so it decreases the tension on the spring, and then that should help to balance it out. And then exactly the same for the other side. So when you lifting this up, you're not checking the tweak of the back here, you're checking the tweak of the front, and that's the reason why you're adjusting it. And when I do the tweak, I just use my flat head to do it. I just find that it gives me good purchase on the chassis there, and I can just put it up, so I'm using it at that angle there like that, and I can just get good purchase on the chassis and know that I'm sitting there right in the middle of the chassis. So that's all of the car done, from literally out of the box to the full setup and the electrics in the car, and I'd say it's probably taken me a week to do this car. So it's quite a significant amount of time that it takes to build one of these up. Yes, I've been filming as well and doing that all myself, so it's added time to it, but it's been every evening on the car pretty much, and then the weekend as well, doing bits on the car. So it's quite a significant amount of time to build one of these up from start to finish. Anyway, hope you've really enjoyed all the videos.